Good morning. Now, Jesus said that the good news of the kingdom would be preached worldwide and then the end would come. So the question is, has the good news been preached? Now, I'm going to tell you a story, and at first you'll wonder whatever it has to do with preaching the good news, but bear with me and all will be clear, I hope. Matthew 26. Now, this was about 6 days before Jesus was about to die. And he was at the home of Simon the leper. Now this Simon, it seems, was either a friend or a relative of Lazarus and his sisters Martha and Mary. Now he couldn't still have been a leper because otherwise he wouldn't be able to have people at his home. So it's quite likely that Jesus had cured him sometime earlier of his leprosy. So this meal might have been a way of showing his thanks. Now, while Jesus was at the table, and I need to add here that Lazarus was there, Martha and Mary were there, so were the disciples. So it was quite a large gathering. But while he was at the table, Mary brings along an alabaster jar of the most expensive ointment and poured it on his head as he was at table. Now, the scent must have been wonderful, but the disciples came up with all sorts of criticism, of course, led by Judas Iscariot, and they kept saying, why didn't she sell this ointment and give the money to the poor? Jesus said, why are you upsetting this woman? What she has done for me is one of the good works. And that's something that as Christians we sometimes forget, that good works is part of our remit. Anyway, he said, you have the poor with you always, but me you will not always have. He went on, when she poured this ointment on my body, she did it to prepare me for burial. Now that wasn't Mary's purpose. Jesus had given her back her brother Lazarus by resurrection, and this, it appears, was to show her deep gratitude to Jesus. She had no idea that Jesus was about to die. However, Jesus was able to draw comfort from this wonderful gift of appreciation, and from the scent. It must have comforted him a great deal before he was led to the slaughter, as it were. Now, here's the point about the good news. Jesus said, I tell you solemnly, wherever in the world this good news is proclaimed, what she has done will be told also in remembrance of her. Now, how many people know this story? Well, all of Jehovah's Witnesses know the story. Most people in Christendom know the story, Catholics, Protestants, anybody who goes to church. So it appears that the good news has been preached, or we wouldn't know this story. However, there's an interesting verse in Philippians 1 and verse 15. Paul was talking about the preaching work, and he said, it is true that some of them are doing it just out of rivalry and competition, but the rest preach Christ with the right intention, out of nothing but love. So we might look at Jehovah's Witnesses and we wonder, are the governing body preaching this out of rivalry or out of love? Well, I'll leave it to you to answer that. I am certain that some, at least, of Jehovah's Witnesses are preaching it out of love for people. They want them to enjoy the paradise earth. So, Paul goes on to explain, the others who proclaim Christ for jealous or selfish motives do not mind if they make my chains heavier to bear, but, he asks, does it matter? Whether from dishonest motives or in sincerity, Christ is proclaimed. Obviously, it's better to preach with a motive of love, obviously. But at least the Christ is being proclaimed. So when I was preaching as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, was I preaching the good news? I hoped that I was. I believed that I was going to help people gain eternal life by getting to know God and Jesus. But I'll leave you to think about that. are Jehovah's Witnesses preaching the good news. What is the good news? Well, it's the good news of the kingdom, and the Jews knew about the kingdom because in Daniel 7 it talks of Jesus becoming the ruler over the world, and his rulership was going to last forever. And then in Luke 4, Jesus quotes from Isaiah where he says, "The Spirit of the Lord has been given to me, for he has anointed me. He has sent me to bring good news to the poor." That's poor in spirit, poor in wealth, poor because we're in sorrow or destitute, all sorts of poorness. Jesus is giving us good news. To proclaim liberty to captives, to the blind new sight, to set the downtrodden free, to proclaim the Lord's year of favour. So I believe the good news has been preached, but we need to keep our faith strong in it. So whatever we can do, can we read the scriptures? Because all of this is the good news. Read it, please, and keep your faith strong, and all of us will be in God's blessing, which will be wonderful. Thank you so much for listening to me this morning. God bless you all.